For months, Henry Wallace, once a strong and respected businessman, had been confined to his bedroom. At 72, the sharpness of his mind was still intact, but his body had begun to betray him. Aching joints, weak legs, and constant exhaustion. His son, Adrian Wallace, a well-known millionaire CEO, had tried everything. The best doctors, private therapists, and expensive treatments. But nothing seemed to work. Henry's condition kept getting worse. Every time Adrian visited, his father looked thinner, weaker, almost defeated. The strangest part? His father always said the same thing. "I don't understand it. I should be getting better, not worse." The doctors were confused. The medicines were correct. The tests showed nothing new. Still, Henry's health declined steadily, as though something or someone was draining the life out of him. Meanwhile, Henry's young wife, Clarissa, was always by his side. She played the role of the devoted caretaker, bringing him meals, giving him medication, sitting with him for hours. She often told Adrian with a tired smile, "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'm taking good care of your father. You focus on your business." At first, Adrian believed her, but something felt off. Henry's room always smelled strange, like a mixture of bitter herbs and spoiled fruit. Clarissa never let the nurses inside without her supervision, and every time Adrian arrived unexpectedly, she appeared startled, as if she had something to hide. One night, when Henry complained of severe stomach pain again, Adrian finally decided to stay over at the mansion. He sat in the living room pretending to read emails, but his ears were alert. Around midnight, he heard soft footsteps climbing the stairs. Too soft, too careful. It was Clarissa. She was carrying a small tray covered with a cloth. Adrian followed her quietly, keeping his distance. When she entered Henry's bedroom, she closed the door only halfway. Through the narrow gap, Adrian saw her pull out a bottle from her robe pocket. A dark glass bottle with no label. Clarissa poured a few drops of the liquid into Henry's herbal drink. Then she looked around nervously before whispering to herself, "Just a little more and he won't last long now." Adrian froze. His blood turned to ice. Everything suddenly made sense, and the truth was far more horrifying than he ever imagined. The next morning, Daniel drove to the estate earlier than usual. The sky was still pale and a cool breeze moved gently through the rows of trees lining the driveway. He stepped out of the car, hoping to find his father asleep, resting peacefully for once. But as he approached the front door, he heard raised voices inside. One was his father's. The other belonged to Clara. Daniel froze. His father rarely raised his voice unless he was pushed to the edge. Daniel moved closer, his pulse tightening. "You didn't give me my medication last night," Richard shouted, pain evident in his tone. "I forgot, all right?" Clara snapped, her voice harsh and impatient. "You're lucky I do anything at all around here." Daniel's eyes widened. Forgot his medication? Again? He stepped inside quietly and peered toward the living room. His father sat hunched in his wheelchair, gripping the armrests, his face tight with discomfort. Clara stood over him with crossed arms, tapping her foot, clearly annoyed. "Do you think I have time for your endless complaints?" she hissed. "Every day it's something new. My life didn't end just because yours did." Daniel felt anger rising like heat under his skin. He wanted to step in, but he needed to understand everything first. So he watched silently. Richard's voice shook. "Clara, you promised the doctor. You said you'd help me." "Oh, please," she sneered. "The doctor doesn't live here, I do. And I'm sick of being your nursemaid and wife all at once." She leaned closer, lowering her voice but not her cruelty. "Maybe if you weren't so dramatic, you'd actually feel better." Daniel swallowed hard. The woman who had once pretended to love his father now stood before him as a stranger, one who cared more about herself than the man who gave her everything. Then Clara pulled out something from her pocket, a small bottle of pain medication. She shook it and the pills rattled loudly. "You want these?" she taunted. "Then stop whining and behave. I'm not wasting my time on you today." Shock bolted through Daniel's chest. She was withholding his pain medicine on purpose. His father bowed his head, defeated. Daniel had seen enough. His hands curled into fists as he stepped forward at last. "Clara," he said, his voice like ice, "we need to talk." Clara spun around, startled to see Daniel standing at the doorway. Her expression shifted instantly. Anger to surprise, surprise to fake sweetness. "Oh, Daniel, you're here early," she said with an awkward smile. "Your father has been difficult this morning." Daniel didn't return the smile. His gaze went straight to the bottle of pain medication still in her hand. "Give it to me," he said calmly. Clara blinked. "What?" "The medicine," he repeated, stepping closer. "Hand it over." For a moment, Clara hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the bottle as if she feared losing control. But under Daniel's piercing stare, she reluctantly placed it in his palm. Daniel crouched beside his father's wheelchair. "Dad," he said softly, "did she give you your medication last night?" Richard's lips trembled before he whispered, "No, and she hasn't for several days." Daniel felt something inside him break. Not anger, but deep, wounded heartbreak. His father had always been a strong man, a builder of empires, someone who stood tall even in storms. To see him reduced to this, helpless, mistreated, was unbearable. He slowly stood and faced Clara again. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why would you do this to him?" Clara crossed her arms defensively. "You have no idea how exhausting it is to care for him. I'm the one stuck here every day while you run your fancy company. I deserve a break too." "A break?" Daniel repeated, "by letting him suffer?" Clara rolled her eyes. "He exaggerates, he's just trying to get attention. Besides, once he passes, all this stress will finally be over." Silence fell like a heavy stone. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. "Is that what you're waiting for him to die?" She didn't answer, but her eyes said enough. Richard closed his eyes, his shoulders trembling. The truth had been spoken out loud, and it shattered him. Daniel's voice hardened. "Pack your things, you're leaving this house today." Clara's eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Daniel said. "I'm calling our lawyer. This marriage is over. You will not take another step near my father." Clara's face twisted with rage. "You can't do this. I gave years to this man." "And he gave you everything," Daniel replied. "But you chose cruelty." As Clara stormed toward the stairs, Daniel placed the pills gently in his father's hand. "You're safe now, Dad," he whispered. "I promise I won't let anyone hurt you again."